Welcome to Accountable, where your business is our business. Hosted by David R. Peters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Accountable, the podcast for CFOs by a CFO. Hey, my name is Dave. Thank you so much for being here this week. You know, we have a great topic. One of the things that I think that our profession struggles with, and one of the things that it is that I think that we have been I think trying to do a better job on here over the last, the last few years, and really for longer than that, is just the idea of building an inclusive environment. And, how do we make it so that folks that are coming into our profession, folks that are are in our profession now, how do we make them feel like they are included? How do we make sure that they feel like that they are in a good place, in a place where they want to be, in a place where they can really thrive? And to help us talk about this, about this topic that I think for a lot of us has been one that has been on our mind, is Jina Etienne, who does a lot of stuff. She is the let's see, you're the CEO of Etienne Consulting, and then I know that you speak and teach all over the country, I believe. So you do some consulting work, you do a lot of speaking, you do a lot of writing. And you seemingly do everything. So Jina, thank you so much for being on Accountable.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, I mean, I think that, the place where we got to start here, because this is something that when you first said this to me, I have to admit that it really was something that stuck with me. You call yourself an accidental accountant, which I love. Can you talk more about that? What do you mean you are the accidental accountant? I think for a lot of us, we went to school for accounting. There was nothing accidental about it. But I would love to hear how you kind of became the accidental accountant.
So I describe my path to accounting like the game Plinko. Do you remember that from The
Yes,
Price is Right?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. I
Good
actually have
reference.
a blog post on it. It's in, I don't know if you read the book, Dear Accountants, by Cecilia Young. I have a chapter in there and I talk about it there too, in case anybody's excited to hear the whole story.
There it is.
But, I went to college to study pre-law and had no intentions on doing anything but being a lawyer. Turns out that I don't think my college that I went to at the time had a pre-law degree. So I thought I wanted to do business law. I'll get a business degree. And you had to take accounting.
Mm-hmm.
I put it off to the absolute last minute because I've heard horrible things about it. And then I got an A. And I don't remember trying super hard. Economics was hard. Algebra was hard. Math, no, that's not true. But anyway. I got an A. I went and talked to the professor and I asked him if it was always this easy, to which he laughed out loud and said, it's a you get it or you don't topic. And I got it. I have that brain that does that stuff.
Yep.
And I changed my major. And then I thought, I knew nothing about public accounting. I mean, I had no idea about the profession. I just changed my degree because, quote unquote, it was easy. Not realizing what was to come, to be fair.
Right.
And then I thought I was going to work in corporate America. In my mind, accounting was receivables and payables. I had no idea. And then I got an internship at this place called Touche Ross. I don't even know what it is. As it turns out, I got a really good job because after the internship, I was offered a job. And then I realized how amazing that job was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and then in my senior year in college, I took tax. And I thought, oh, wow, this is accounting and law done. I worked in the tax department at Touche Ross and ta-da, there you go.
Yep. Yep.
I'm an accountant. Oh, and then a CPA.
There it happens, so I think that everyone's path to the profession, I think, is always kind of interesting. I know that, I was convinced that once I passed the CPA exam, that it was all downhill from there. I figured life would be easy after that. It wasn't. For those of you out there that were wondering, it wasn't. So, that's interesting.
It wasn't what I planned, but I feel like it's exactly where I belonged. Okay, now I know we're talking about diversity, inclusion, belonging, but I say that in the sense that I found a career that lined up with the things I was good at, the way that I thought, and I liked the way we interacted with clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that your path into the profession. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who start maybe in a different spot, but they end up in our profession. But for you, it sounds like it was kind of the people side that I think really kind of drew you. And I think that that maybe that's a little bit of a miss item today. I think from a lot of folks that are going into the profession, a lot of folks, they don't think about kind of the people side. I think a lot of times, and maybe this is what maybe one of the reasons why we maybe have trouble with with the pipeline right now. The pipeline has been all over the news about, how we as CPAs, we are struggling to find new talent to come into the profession. Maybe is that something that you think kind of keeps people away? Is they think that they're just going to kind of be in the back with their, their green visor on, cranking through numbers instead of really talking with clients?
So that green visor image, it's cute for the movies, but I don't know that it's, there are stereotypes and stereotypes. There's this great TED talk by, I want to say her name is Chimamanda Adichie, but I might say it wrong. It's called The Danger of a Single Story. And one of the things that she says is it's not that stereotypes are untrue, but that they're incomplete. And okay. I think the green shades sitting in the back room, hunched over with an abacus, for crying out loud,
right,
is not, there's some truth to that. It's a visual of some of the work we do in terms of process, but it's what, 10% of our work?
Right.
And I think that the other extreme is that Ben Affleck movie, The Accountant. You remember that one?
Yep.
Yeah, that's not us either.
Right.
I was hoping when I saw the title of that movie that it was going to make us sexy.
Right.
But it turns out, no. But I think the truth lies somewhere in between. But the public at large sees the green shade, usually white guy with an abacus, right? Or a calculator. Or nobody remembers Ben Affleck. And to your point, there's so much more involved. The work that we do is directly related to the people we work with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now the scale of your organization changes because when I was at Touche Ross, I didn't really have direct client interaction.
Right.
But I had intimate details of my client's life. And from that work, I was able to learn my clients over several years. I got to see their life in numbers. And, everything we do boils down to a number somewhere. Everything we do. You go to the doctor, there's a copay and there's a trail behind it of paperwork. You go to the mechanic, sadly, that's not free. You pay for that. And everything we do. And so looking at those documents, I really got a sense of my clients. And I loved, especially with tax, that the idea was you really need to understand your clients and then think, how can I reflect them in that tax return? Mm-hmm. Because similar circumstances might lead to slightly different tax returns depending on a couple of factors. And then when I started my own practice, I had one-to-one relationships with my clients. Mm-hmm. And it was the relationship that led the engagement. The tax return was the byproduct of that. That's the way I looked at that. And I don't think that students see that.
I agree with you. And I think that I do wonder if that's because, I mean, even if you didn't have sort of direct client interaction, I mean, it sounds to me like you had some connectivity there.
Absolutely.
And so as a result of that, I wonder if maybe students, and especially now, I mean, let's face it. I mean, I think a lot of folks that are coming out of school right now are maybe struggling with that connectivity. I mean, they maybe graduated or went to school during times of COVID, where I think we were all struggling with the fact that it was hard to connect with people. Not that it was impossible, but it was much more difficult because we were feeling rather isolated.
Yeah, I see that in two ways. One, we in COVID, depending on your situation, to the person living alone that was extremely isolated during COVID, to the people who had families who wished they were isolated during COVID.
Yeah.
And so there was a completely different way that we engaged with the world and with our clients and with our colleagues. If you had a baseline of what it feels like to work in an organization, you appreciated how what we were doing in COVID changed. But to your point, if I graduated college and I got a job and I started working for corporate America, a nonprofit, a firm, doesn't matter, and I'm working from my dining room table, I've never gone into the office. I've never actually met my colleagues. I may or may not know how to relate on video.
Right.
Because my experience might be social media and texting and, who knows. But there is a picture that has been created in the minds of a whole bunch of employees over the last 3 years that couldn't be further from the experience that most of us think about. And that frames, corporate America and big leadership and executive teams. They're looking at managing the workforce and setting expectations and trying to foster, nurture, and, elevate culture.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the work experience and the expectations pre-COVID. So you have all of that. And now I've been working in a firm for 2 years and you're talking about culture? Like, what the hell does that even mean? Can I say hell? But,
you can.
But
yes.
There is disconnects on so many levels there.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of that is that today we know, I'll say younger employees, say mid 30s, and possibly younger, maybe a little older than that, especially because of COVID, want purpose. Mm-hmm. They want alignment of value. They want to know that their work means something. And I don't know that as a profession, we do a good job of letting them know the meaning. I mean, I saw firsthand how my work directly related to my clients. I had a client that she lost her job and she ended up doing some contract work here or there. And if anybody does tax work, you kind of get screwed when you're self-employed if you don't know the rules. She did not set aside enough money for estimated taxes. She owed a boatload of money. I had to help her with an installment agreement, and she couldn't afford to pay me. Mm-hmm. You know what I told her? Pay me what you can, when you can.
Right.
And she literally sent me like $25 a month for a while. That was my relationship with that client. But people don't think accounting is like that. But I also want to say, and I don't know if you want me to shut up because I'm running long here, but I also want to say that it's not just tax. Auditors, we have as auditors a very intimate relationship with our business clients because we see stuff on the back end. We see all the different nooks and crannies of their business. We see when they're struggling. We see when they have big wins. We see the implications of leadership decisions as it plays out in the numbers. There's a relationship there too. Mm-hmm. And so everything we do is organized around people-to-people relationships. The numbers are just the byproduct of that. If we could let the students know that this is accounting, it's not what you think, I do believe more people would be interested in it. And frankly, I get annoyed with the CPA exam is hard. Yeah, try passing the bar. Try becoming a doctor. Try becoming an engineer. Hell, try becoming a mechanic. I mean, there are a lot of jobs that are hard.
Right.
So, yeah, it's hard. Next question, right?
Yeah,
And then
right.
the whole thing about busy season, try being an airline pilot. Try
Right.
being an ER doctor. Every career at this level has stressors, has busy times, has requirements for continuing education and expectations for professionalism. We're not special.
Hmm.
We're also not so hard and difficult that you want to avoid the profession. We just have we need to do social media as a profession and level set what it feels like to be accountant. Not what we do, like divide, multiply, debits and credits or whatever. Not that, but what we do from a relationship perspective. I think that would make a difference.
I think I want to highlight a couple of things because you said a lot there, and I want to make sure that people are picking up on this because I think you said some excellent things. One of the things that I think that you said here is that the profession, there is a natural connectivity that the accounting profession is it thrives on. It's the heartbeat of the profession, and that connectivity that people have, may have been, that maybe people coming out of school, they don't see that connectivity, at least not as easily. You also mentioned too that that a lot of professions have difficult things. They have difficult tasks. They have difficult pieces of those professions. And if you're going to do big time things in this world, you got to take on the things that are hard. The things that are easy are not necessarily those aren't typically going to be sort of life changing type of things. So if you really want to do something big, you got to step up. Is that am I saying that well?
Absolutely. And I would just slot in there that we all have superpowers.
Right.
As it would turn out, my quote unquote superpower made accounting easy. It's just my brain processes. So layer that in there, that what you just said, that there's all of these perceptions and all of this is true. But there are a whole host of people that if they just explored it, not fell into it like me, they would find, oh, wait, I can do this. This falls perfectly with my brain processes.
Certainly part of that connectivity, though, idea that we have touched on here that I think is critical. How does diversity kind of fit into that? Because I think we've talked a lot, I think, especially here recently. It's always been a topic, but the CPA profession has struggled with diversity and inclusion, and on pretty substantial levels. One of the things that my marketing manager, Sonia Guthrie, who does a fantastic job. One of the statistics that she found was, according to the AICPA's 2021 Trends Report, only 2% of CPAs in the in U.S. accounting firms are Black, and we see similar low percentage of Black CPAs in leadership positions. That is astounding to me. And I guess my question is how does diversity and inclusion, how does that fit into this idea of connectivity? Because if if the connectivity is the thing that we're missing, it would seem that should play a role there. Is that overstating?
So now how much time do we have? I think we're going to need 7 more hours for this conversation. So many things. I wish I was writing it down, all the thoughts. So diversity in the profession, there's a legacy that we need to go back to, that when you think about corporate business norms and just the evolution of what leadership looks like, you've got blue collar, white collar, you've got post-secondary education, master's degree, and so on. And for so many in society, based on race, based on gender, based on socioeconomic barriers, regardless of gender and race, not to mention other things like disability, discrimination. Like if you setting all of that aside, just because I don't want to go into politics, there is just this long history of an entire swath of our population that didn't even go to college. And if they did, they were steered into other degrees, you know? And so right off the bat, if you look at accounting, if our first Black CPA was in 1921, and then we didn't get to 100, by 1955, we'd only had 41 Black CPAs. So shockingly, in 1965 is when we got to 101. It's not been that long. I don't have those same trends in other racial groups or by gender. But if there's this legacy of white male accountant, predominant owners of CPA firms, predominant members of accounting firms and public accounting and CPAs in general, we might start to see that trend changing, but it's going to be a minute before we can start to see holistic change.
Because you have this legacy, and so I mean you can't turn the ship around that quick. It's just too big.
Well, not only that, but we can't be more diverse today. I say this a lot. If we look at partners in CPA firms, so that 2% number that you just cited is CPAs in accounting and finance functions. And all firms, 2% are multi-ethnic, 2% are Black, 14% Asian, 5% Hispanic and Latino. As you get up to the partner ranks, those numbers don't change much. They're an 82% white. But should we be surprised if you go back 15 and 20 years? What was the population of students graduating from college back then that needed to work however many years you need to work to become a partner today? Our partner ranks today aren't going to be more diverse than the group of people graduating from college and sitting for the CPA exam and entering public accounting. Because a lot of people might have graduated, people of color, but gone into government.
Right.
Because the opportunities weren't there. So let's contextualize that. Fast forward to today, though, and if you look at the numbers in terms of trends of students pursuing accounting, they don't look that great. And that is what we need to think about, the future of the profession. And I know it's important to think about diversity and inclusion and where we are today. But what I worry about is we're so focused on where we are this year and last year and the year before that we're not taking the longer term view.
Good point.
So if the numbers haven't changed significantly over the past 10 to 15 years, which they haven't, anywhere from 75 to 65 to 70% white who's pursuing accounting degrees, that's pretty flat. So we need to think, how can we move that needle in a meaningful way? And we're starting to see trends with women. Women are studying accounting more than men, but barely. Right. It's like women are 51%. I don't know, but something like that. We're just past the 50-50 mark with women. So there's a lot of work we need to do. And when we can do that, maybe then we'll start to see change. Because here's the thing. If in 2020, I'm going to make up a number because I know these are let's say 70% of accounting graduates pursuing the CPA exam are white. Then 15 and 20 years from now, we're going to have the same lack of diversity in the manager levels and the partner levels, because we also know that retention rates for minorities and women are lower. This is complex math. All of you accountants out there, pull out your calculators and do the algebra. These are complex formulas.
Yeah.
But they require a human a conversation about the humanity behind it. One of the things I thought about when you were talking at the very beginning, you said we want an inclusive environment. And I thought, well, everybody wants an inclusive environment, even the white guys. Now, it's a little harder for, the disabled Black woman, or I should say the Black woman with a disability who happens to be lesbian. I mean, I'm trying to layer in here as many different categories as possible. All of these categories intersecting in one person is called intersectionality, by the way. So when you look at intersectional identities that are like that, or just a Black woman, I walk into a firm, and if I don't have a true understanding of how I'm supposed to behave, look, I'm looking at the people that are managers, I'm looking at the people that are partners, and I'm going to model my behavior after them. Who am I modeling? A white guy.
Right.
And so if I see that there's a certain way that they carry their self-professionalism and whatnot, I'm starting to mirror and adapt. I see white women, how they dress, so I'm going to dress that way. And it couldn't be less authentic.
So I think that's interesting here because you're right, and what I was meaning to say, I think everybody should feel like they belong. I mean, at least to some degree. I'm not necessarily saying that you're necessarily going to be sort of buddy with, everybody that you're colleagues with. I don't know that that's necessarily a requirement, but you're right. I mean, a lot the old business school term is tone at the top, right? So if if I'm looking to try to advance, I model myself after the folks that seem to be in charge.
That there's also the idea that if there's a lack of representation, meaning I don't see somebody that looks like me or shares some element of my identity in leadership, it sends a signal that perhaps there isn't an opportunity for me there. So even if I'm trying to adapt my behavior to assimilate into this culture, and assimilation is an important word here, then I don't see myself in leadership. I'm going to be here long enough to get the skills that I need, and then I'm out. I'm going to go start my own firm. I'm going to transition over to corporate America. I remember when I was growing up in public accounting, the saying was, you train the best and keep the rest.
Yeah.
And it was an up or out situation. Well, the ups and the outs for minorities and women were at a higher pace and a higher rate. So I think that idea is important. I also want to go back to the word belonging, because in my work, I like to differentiate diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I do that because today we hear people say diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
And when they say diversity and inclusion, it is a word.
Yeah, it's sort of like it's interchangeable almost.
Well,
yeah.
You could just take out the spaces between diversity and inclusion and just make it all one word. And I think, and when you say that, it conjures up images of uncomfortable conversations. Largely, when I ask my clients, what's the first thing that comes to mind? They say race. And so when we say diversity and inclusion, I think what we need to do is step back and say, well, what is the diversity that we're talking about? And in this profession, if this profession is 82% male at the top, and I want to say close to the same ratio as, I think it was 82% white, 72% male. I'm ballparking it now because I'm frantically trying to find the stats. So don't quote me to those, but they're close. Then we need to think about diversity in more complex ways.
Mm-hmm.
We need to see more holistic diversity. It is important that we address the concerns and the barriers that are facing marginalized groups and minorities in the traditional way we view them: race, gender, gender identity, disability, and so on. Those barriers need to be addressed. But if we're going to talk about diversity in our profession, we need to look beyond race.
Yeah.
We need to look beyond gender. And then when we have to define equity and inclusion. And if we have time, we can talk about that. But the reason I want to differentiate these terms is when we do that work on equity, understand it. When we think about inclusion and understand how to be inclusive, which by the way is an action, the result of that, the outcome of our work, is a sense of belonging. Yeah. Because I can't make you feel belonged. Okay, that's not a word, but
I
it's almost as if I do this, you'll feel a sense of belonging. And no, I can't, not only can I not make that happen for you, but what you need to feel like you belong someplace is going to be different for each of us. So this isn't about creating an environment that is sort of like formulaic.
uh-huh.
Be your authentic self. Well, fascinating. That isn't what's going to drive belonging.
So belonging is a result. It's a result. I think that's well stated. I want to address this because I think that you're hitting on I think an important reason. I think why a lot of folks, I think whenever we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're right. We kind of talk about that kind of all in one thing. And I can't help but wonder if some of that is because we've almost sort of, on some level, I wonder if organizations have maybe boiled this down to kind of a check the box kind of an exercise where it's like, okay, we go through our IT training, our IT security training every year. We go and we get our CPE credits every year. And oh, yeah, we also need to do our diversity training every year so that we can check that box and that we can be saying, yes, we've done that. We are now a inclusive environment.
Yeah. We've decided it's inclusive here. You're going to be included whether you like it or not.
Right. I mean, is that oversimplifying is there something to that?
No, absolutely. There's something to that. And I think I guess I get a little frustrated with this because if you think about our profession and if you think about, I need to know the latest regulatory updates, I need to keep up with tax law changes, I need to make sure that our software and our systems are appropriate. To that, I say, well, I would hope so.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like a doctor not keeping up with best practice in medicine or the trends in care for cancer treatments. I mean, you don't get to pat yourself on the back because you kept up with the tax law change. How do we then, this goes all the way back to the beginning of our conversation around, the perceptions of our industry. If it doesn't feel like there's humanity in the work and there's community in the office, like there is, say, in this perception anyway, in tech companies or in nonprofit organizations or teams in corporate America. If we can't somehow convey that, but we can't convey a falsehood. You can't put pretty pictures on the website and then people walk in the door and it's very, very different.
Yeah.
And I think that, but why is diversity and inclusion important? I almost don't want to call it diversity and inclusion. When people ask me what I do, sometimes I don't even want to say that. What this is to me is something that I call fearless inclusion. And I define fearless inclusion as the freedom to be yourself and the intentional act of creating space for others to do the same. And if I can work in an organization where I can just be me and do the work, not some prescription version of me, not some semi-hidden making up parts of me, or worried about you. If we could all just show up and do our work, and I can ask questions and I can challenge the status quo and I can say, I don't know, help me learn. If I can make a mistake and you can coach me to success, I want to work there.
Right.
And the most important thing for, I think, us to remember, particularly in public accounting firms, is our inventory. It's going to sound a little cold, but our inventory is the sum of the brains in the space. And we need people to bring those brains to work. And those brains function differently. Those brains have different backgrounds and experiences. Those brains have different skill sets. Can we unlock all of those superpowers in a way that optimizes the work we do? So if as a profession, we only do D&I training to check the box, we're missing the point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this isn't doing the D&I work to make people feel good. And that is unfortunately the way firms and leaderships in corporate America, frankly, look at D&I. And they look at D&I as, I don't know, this is probably controversial, but they look at D&I the way I say it is, well, we want all the minorities to feel good here. And
Okay.
that might be true, but what that presumes is this social structure. It starts off in the lack of equality.
Right.
It is rooted in the, I belong here and you don't, but I want to make you feel like you belong. And so I think turning that on its head, thinking, let's look at the future of the organizations we want to be and think about how we get there. And it's not going to be software trends and tax law changes.
Yeah.
It's going to be the interactions, the dynamics of the way we work and think and deliver value to our clients. And that means we have to unlock and empower the humanity and the skills and the superpowers that are there. And that is true whether this place is all male and all white, which it won't be, or it's increasingly diverse, which it will be. Just look at the demographic trends in this country. We'll be more diverse eventually, whether we like it or not.
Right.
That's where all of this leads. And if we keep positioning D&I as an HR thing of employee experience, we're missing the point.
Well, and it sounds to me, and maybe this is some of what holds us back from the fearless inclusion idea that you just, I think, articulated very well, is that there's a vulnerability there, isn't there? I mean, because what you talked about fearless inclusion when you gave your definition, there was there was two parts to it. One is that I personally need to feel like I can be who I am, and I can say the things that that I need to say, and that I can bring my experiences to the table and to work. But you also said that it involves creating space for other people to do the same. So it's kind of, you gave kind of a twofold definition. And you also said that there was kind of this vulnerability there, like, hey, I don't know how to do this. And hey, I need to learn how to do this. And that's being vulnerable. And I think that I think that vulnerability is that maybe the thing that scares us. It forces us to be, to feel like we are weak, which I got to be honest, a lot of accountants, we get, we feel like we kind of get paid to be right. And so when we're not confident in ourselves on something, that takes us into a spot where we're not feeling good.
Humans don't like to say, I don't know. Humans don't like to acknowledge loneliness, but we do know that 40% of people say they feel a sense of loneliness and isolation at work.
Right.
And the whole idea of authenticity, what I struggle with is that it's almost like we're trying to paint rules that allow people to show up as themselves, as if that's a thing. When what I really would like us to do is people just show up. And then we don't put any other adjectives, descriptors, or any of those things. Just show up. We don't have to describe it as authentic. We don't have to say, or it's it. Let's strip away all of that and just show up. And then the idea of asking questions and pushing back and challenging and learning and healthy debate, that's called psychological safety. And it has a name, and that's the space that I would love for us to create. And you say vulnerability. I think our profession, we start off as a profession as auditors, right? And the role of an auditor is to be invisible. In theory, you walk into an organization, you kind of poke and prod and you check everything and you go thumbs up, double thumbs up, everything's great. And then you quietly back out of the room. And if all goes well, nobody even knew you were there, and you issued this report and it seems like nothing. And that's the work. And as a result of that, we all have become that personality. Mm-hmm. Not only publicly, as accountants, we sort of come in and we stay as not flamboyant as possible, as invisible as possible in a professional sense. And then we back out. But then walk inside the firm and we're the same way in the firm. behind the curtain, we can be our fun selves, as fun as we can possibly be anyway, as accountants. We can do that.
Right.
I just think that we don't look at all of that side of it from a humanity, identity, how this career helps me fulfill my vision for myself. And the future of the workforce is asking us to think that way. And this is for all of us. All of us. If you look at people who are millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, what we know is their identity is intersectional. They don't identify as Black, white, male, gay. They might be those things, but they see themselves as the combination of all of that makes them the unique person. The idea that we're over here talking about diversity and inclusion is some of them scratching their head, because that falls into the, well, I would hope so category. And this is where leadership is struggling today. There's just this huge disconnect. It's born out of the executive leadership. Likely older white guys are saying, well, this is how I did it.
Right.
This is how you should do it. And I'm not saying this because this is what I do for a living. I would like to see us move conversations around culture, conversations about employee experience, conversations about how we lead and manage teams to foster a space that unlocks those superpowers out of HR. HR should be policies, practices, payroll, legalities, that all of that stuff needs to be done. And they're experts for that. Just like we have experts for IT, we have experts for business development, and then we have subject matter experts in the work that we do. But the fact that I can create HR policy doesn't mean I can nurture the skills we need to be successful. And don't tell me it's technical, because that goes without saying. The skills we need to be successful are cultural fluency, gender language fluency, understanding the spectrum of identities, understanding how to unlock the different styles and thinking and backgrounds to bring that into the work that we do, how to lead these teams, and then how to connect with clients who are doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That should be, in my mind, a completely different way of looking at this work, because it is umbrella level work. It touches every role, every department, every human, and it doesn't matter that you're tax or audit or internal services, learning and development team, HR team. It doesn't matter. Same challenges and issues apply. And unfortunately, we're looking at D&I, I think, upside down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you've laid out, I think it's a great image for us to aspire to. I think what a lot of people, I think, really struggle with, even if if you're listening to this and you're a leader within your firm, maybe you're, a CFO, or, you're a partner or a controller or something like that, what you're talking about is big. And I think with a lot of folks, I think that they wonder how to even start. How do you start to build this? I mean, because I think you're correct. I mean, we've tried to sort of policy our way into into this. We now have an environment that is inclusive and everybody belongs. Because we've checked these boxes. So if we can't do it that way, how do we begin?
Well, it starts by acknowledging that we need to do the work. It starts by repositioning the work, pulling it out of HR, and looking at it as the business imperative that it is. We need to see and value the diversity in the room. We need to understand that diversity, and it's complicated. The stuff that we can see, the differences we can see are just the drop of the bucket about all the real differences If you've ever seen that identity iceberg, those elements of our identity that are visual are just a handful. But the elements of our identity that we tap into to do our work, there are invisible, and there are a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And so I think if we can understand that as leaders and start to see and appreciate that diversity and how it can drive creativity, how it can increase engagement, how it can drive innovation, which, by the way, we need to talk about how that happens. Then I think we can start moving in that path, because this is a journey. This is not a destination. And the reason I say innovation, this is the thing about innovation. Like, we're going to be innovative. Like, what the hell does that even mean?
Right.
Is it like we're going to schedule a meeting on Tuesday at 4:00 and then we're going to be innovative there? It doesn't work that way. Innovation happens when people ask questions, when people try different things, when the person with the different background says, well, this is how I see it. And all the rest of us go, because curiosity is a powerful thing. But that's not, innovation won't happen in a room where everybody thinks the same, everybody has the same background, and nobody's afraid, and everybody's afraid to suggest a crazy idea.
There has to be value in that. People have to find value in that. Otherwise it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, not just value, but it has to be safe to do it.
It has to be safe to do it. Getting back to the fearless inclusion idea.
I want people to come here and really learn. But if I make a mistake and I get written up for it on my performance review, I have not learned. What I've learned is don't make a mistake.
Good point.
So, I mean, there's so much to this. This is like I said, it's a long game. It's a journey. It's a mindset shift. And it's really collectively as a profession challenging that status quo. The business world is changing so fast. Clients and customers have different expectations. These are global shifts and changes. And yet we're still doing the same thing the same way and struggling to understand why we can attract people to the profession. If our profession looks the same way today as it did in 1972, would you want to come work here?
Right.
And I think that, that's a branding level issue for us as a profession. But I think this is it. You can't boil the ocean, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you have to chart a course. And right now we're sort of aimlessly wandering around the ocean because we don't see on the horizon where it is, what we're trying to achieve.
And so if we can kind of get that vision, then we can maybe start building towards it.
Yeah. One of the first things I talk about when I do sessions around leading DEI in organizations is I ask in the room, people who are in the room, what is your organizational intention around DEI? As an organization, have you as leaders sat down and talked about it? Because odds are you're not aligned, but nobody talks about it because everybody wants to say the thing they think that everybody should be saying. And then as an executive yourself, what is your intention around D&I? And then, as a leader, and then as a human, there are 3 levels, because that intention is what powers everything we do.
I think that, that this is it's a big goal. It is something for us, I think, to chew on, but we got to see that destination first. I think that is an important piece of what you're saying. Jina, I think that we could talk about this for probably decades, to be honest with you. But if folks would like to hear more about this idea of fearless inclusion or some of the other topics that you speak on, how would they be able to get a hold of you?
Oh, I'm everywhere. You can find me on LinkedIn.
That's true, by the way, folks.
Etienne Consulting. It's a hard one to know how to spell, but I'm on LinkedIn. There's a company page, Facebook page, my website. My contact information is everywhere. So feel free to reach out. And I think what I would encourage people to do, and what I hope that we've done today, is just got somebody to think,
Yeah.
Okay. Because we're not changing anything overnight.
Right.
What we really want to do, and what I hope to do in my work, is to just get people to think, to just, just to start to look at this in a meaningful way and explore.
Right.
Because until we do that, nothing will change. And not be intimidated or scared by it because it feels like this big thing. And not worry about checking a box. Don't make it a big strategy. Just for you right now, understand it for where you are. And that's where we start. But call me, email me, text me. I miss Twitter, Miss TaxCat on Twitter. I don't know why. If somebody has an idea for a better Twitter handle now that I do this work and I'm not a tax person anymore, please tell me. I am so not creative. I wanted to change that forever. But I miss TaxCat for now.
There you go. There you go, folks. So lots of ways to just correspond with Jina, and I would hope that that folks do that. So we have just barely scratched the surface here today, but just thank you so much for being on and just sharing your insights and just helping us to just take a step back and just think a little bit, and also helping us to just know where to start. I think a lot of us, are just struggling with that. So thank you so much for being on Accountable.
Thank you so much for having me. And I just hope that it sparked some curiosity.
Thank you so much, folks. And we will see you on the next episode of Accountable. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Accountable. Be sure to subscribe for more interviews and insights from today's business leaders.